Kristina Sergeyevna cautiously left her room and headed for the kitchen, where her sister-in-law was still sitting, enjoying the TV series and paying no attention to the landlady. She realized that now it was necessary to decide how to act in this situation. To avoid conflict and keep calm, Kristina Sergeyevna decided to approach her sister-in-law and politely suggest that she share the kitchen. She could say something like, "Hi, I'd like to make myself an omelet and coffee right now. Could we have some sort of kitchen shift? It would probably be more comfortable for you, too, so no one interrupts you watching the show." A conversation like this could have helped avoid conflict and resolve the situation peacefully. It was important to emphasize her rights as the landlady of the apartment, but to do so in a polite and respectful manner. If the daughter-in-law did not compromise and started a conflict, Kristina Sergeyevna could have considered the option of discussing with the apartment owner the possibility of changing the living conditions. For example, try to agree on a schedule for using the kitchen or offer alternatives to accommodate the interests of all tenants. "Did you ever see such audacity?" "No," I'm sure her friends said. "We've never seen such audacity anywhere." While her own son had to squeeze into 3 rooms with his wife and her child, instead of moving out of here to free up a 4th room for us. She hardly denies herself anything, and they call it motherly love, some kind of nightmare. Her friends wondered. "Are you even registered in this apartment?" asked the future daughter-in-law. "I have the right," replied the daughter-in-law. "And my son from my first marriage can also live here." "Right," said her friends. "And your mother-in-law doesn't say anything about the fact that it's someone else's child." "Try to open your mouth," said the daughter-in-law, "and I'll make sure she regrets it. The boy is almost 14. I won't allow his fragile soul to be traumatized." "But that's understandable," her friends agreed. "Maybe you should just kick her out." "And that's it?" "I would have kicked her out a long time ago," said the daughter-in-law, "but legally, she owns half of this apartment. It's unfair," her friends said. Of course, it's unfair, the daughter-in-law agreed. If she had moved into a communal apartment and left her share to her son, that would have been fair. But she only thinks about herself and not denying herself anything. That my son, my husband, and I have to live in 3 rooms on the 0 rubles her son earns doesn't bother her at all. "So, you've been suffering for almost a year now?" her friends asked. "Almost a year," sighed the daughter-in-law, agreeing, "when I got married to her son and moved here. I've been suffering even before that. My first husband and I lived in a 2-room apartment. And now, with your mother-in-law, it's unbearable. She's such an egoist. Not only couldn't she raise a son who would earn more, but she also refuses to give up her share for his benefit." "But don't worry," the daughter-in-law continued, "I won't give her peace here, no matter what. I'll make her move into a communal apartment. She doesn't know what a woman who is loved is capable of." "And you are loved," the daughter-in-law said. "My son is head over heels in love with me. He's ready to fulfill any of my whims. I know what men in love are capable of. As for my birth mother, he couldn't care less about her. He only thinks about how to please me. I know how to use it." The daughter-in-law became increasingly bold from the very beginning when she was brought into this house. With each passing day, she became more and more audacious. Her behavior towards her mother-in-law had deteriorated, to the point where she had forced her mother-in-law to buy her a separate refrigerator and keep it in her room. Kristina Sergeyevna approached the door and listened to the sounds coming from the apartment. She understood that her daughter-in-law was still in the kitchen. "My son is at work," thought Kristina Sergeyevna, "and her son is at school. That's good, or they would all be arguing about something right now." Kristina Sergeyevna let out a heavy sigh and decided to take everything she needed to make breakfast. She left her room and went to the kitchen. She greeted her daughter-in-law, but when she didn't hear a response, she started preparing her breakfast. "Don't you understand that you're in the way?" the daughter-in-law said. "Why do you have to come to the kitchen when I'm here watching TV? I just yelled at you." Kristina Sergeyevna thought to herself, doesn't she realize she's always in the way? Kristina Sergeyevna had told her daughter-in-law many times to buy herself an electric stove, and cook in her own room. It's as if you're doing everything the opposite way on purpose. Kristina Sergeyevna muttered to herself. The daughter-in-law decided not to hold back her emotions any longer and expressed her thoughts to Kristina Sergeyevna in a very rude and sharp manner. Kristina Sergeyevna listened to the daughter-in-law's harsh words and demands. She thought to herself, "It's even more serious than I thought." "All right," Kristina Sergeyevna finally said when the daughter-in-law paused after her outburst. "You've convinced me. I'll move out in a week. A room in a communal apartment will be available. And just to make you happy," the daughter-in-law added, "I'll endure it for another week, but only for a short while." "Fine," Kristina Sergeyevna responded. "I understand, don't worry. Besides, I might have a good laugh from all this stress." She added. "What?" yelled the daughter-in-law. Kristina Sergeyevna hurriedly retreated to her room. In the evening, Kristina Sergeyevna's son learned that his mother would be leaving soon. He agreed with the decision. "It's the right thing to do, Mom," he said. "It will be better for everyone. Your room will become my study," the daughter-in-law declared. "Every respectable man with grand ambitions needs his own study. I will work in there and perhaps create something truly brilliant. You will be proud of me. Maybe I haven't achieved anything great yet because I haven't had my own study." Kristina Sergeyevna didn't respond to her son. A week later, she moved out, and the daughter-in-law took over her room. A year passed, and the daughter-in-law began to contemplate the situation. She chewed over the possibility of inheriting the room in the large communal apartment in the city center. Or perhaps it's time to start renting it out, she thought. We're not benefiting from it at all. The daughter-in-law quickly calculated the potential income she might receive from renting the room. "Your mother," she said to her husband, "let's go and see her. What if something happened to her?" Her husband was puzzled by the sudden suggestion, but he agreed. "Okay, let's go," he said. "She is my mother after all." "Good of you to agree." The daughter-in-law replied. "Maybe we can buy a cake. I'll treat you." The husband questioned the cake idea. "Isn't that unhealthy?" he asked. "Let's buy a measuring tape instead," the daughter-in-law suggested. "Who knows? Maybe we'll need it to measure the room." "Measuring tape, too, huh?" the husband said. "That's a good idea." The daughter-in-law continued, "And while we're there, we can bring some of the things she left behind. They might come in handy." "What did she leave behind?" the husband wondered. "The coffee grinder," the daughter-in-law replied. "It's been sitting in the cupboard for a year, taking up space." "I think it's broken." The husband looked surprised. "I never thought about that," he admitted. "Exactly," said the daughter-in-law, "and remember, our son is called son for a reason. We should always think about our mothers. Don't forget her." "Thank you for reminding me," the husband replied. "I honestly forgot. Let's not forget the measuring tape." 2 hours later, they stood outside Kristina Sergeyevna's apartment door. The daughter-in-law asked in surprise, "Is your mother really living here?" As she observed the opulent door and the single doorbell, her husband replied, "I'm not sure. The door does look quite extravagant, and why is there only one doorbell?" Perplexed, the daughter-in-law rang the apartment's bell. A young and stunningly beautiful woman opened the door. She inquired, "Whom are you looking for?" The daughter-in-law asked, "Does Kristina Sergeyevna live here?" "Yes," the woman replied. "This is her apartment, and who are you?" "I'm her daughter-in-law," said the daughter-in-law, "and this is my husband, her son. Please come in." The woman invited them. As soon as the daughter-in-law stepped into the apartment, she was awestruck. The entrance hall was enormous, approximately 50 square meters. What amazed her the most was a massive aquarium filled with golden fish. She whispered to her husband, "The price of this entrance hall is probably higher than that of our entire apartment." Her husband responded in hushed tones, "What an exquisite entrance hall." The entrance hall boasted 7 beautiful and expensive-looking doors, all of which were closed. Leading away from the entrance hall were 3 wide corridors, seemingly disappearing into the distance. As they entered one of the corridors, 2 enormous black Tibetan mastiffs rushed out, their large tongues hanging out, and they panted heavily. They stared at the daughter-in-law and her husband with great interest. "Don't be afraid," reassured the beautiful woman. They are calm as long as you don't make any sudden movements. The daughter-in-law was in disbelief and inquired, "Aren't you afraid they might hurt someone?" The woman replied, "No, they are quite well behaved. You just need to avoid any abrupt actions." The daughter-in-law then asked, "Where is Kristina Sergeyevna's room? I don't understand." The woman replied, "She lives in all the rooms. This entire apartment belongs to her. So, I'm not sure why you'd want to measure any particular room. If you're interested in the total square footage, it's around 500 square meters." The daughter-in-law inquired, "And who are you in this apartment?" "I'm her personal secretary and assistant," replied the beautiful woman. "I've been working for Kristina Sergeyevna for almost a year now, ever since she got married." The daughter-in-law asked. "Yes," the assistant confirmed. "It's been almost a year since Kristina Sergeyevna married some millionaire. They renovated or redesigned this entire communal apartment. Currently, they are away on vacation, leaving me in charge to take care of the dogs." "That sounds nice and peaceful," remarked the daughter-in-law. "Could you perhaps pass something on to her?" she added. "Of course," the assistant agreed. "We brought something for her," said the son, showing the box with the broken coffee grinder. He was about to hand it over, but the daughter-in-law stopped him, saying, "We'll give it to her in person when we see her." Throughout the journey back home, the daughter-in-law couldn't stop pondering about her mother-in-law's apparent lack of gratitude. She kept saying to her husband, "Can you believe it? She married a millionaire, and yet, for a whole year, she hasn't bothered to check on how we're doing or if everything is all right. It's unbelievable." Her husband agreed. "You're right, how could a mother do that? But don't worry, I won't let this slide." The daughter-in-law started devising various plans to take advantage of her mother-in-law's wealth. Approximately a month later, they received a notification offering to buy out Natalia Sergeyevna's share of the apartment. The daughter-in-law immediately called Natalia Sergeyevna, "But we don't have the money for that," she exclaimed. Natalia Sergeyevna calmly responded, "I know, according to the law, I have to offer my share to you first." "I know you'll refuse," the daughter-in-law persisted, "but keep in mind that half of the apartment belongs to me." "What does that have to do with us?" she asked Kristina Sergeyevna. "My husband's birthday is coming up in 6 months, and I want to give him a worthy gift," Kristina Sergeyevna explained. "I need the money for that. As for your son, you're not thinking about him anymore." "Think about him," the daughter-in-law urged. "You're his mother." Kristina Sergeyevna responded coolly, "If you suddenly leave him, then I'll consider thinking about him. But for now, I'm fine with you. He won't be neglected with you around." Kristina Sergeyevna sold her to rooms to a very angry, quarrelsome, but strikingly beautiful unmarried woman who was looking for a husband. She deliberately chose such a person. Now, this woman not only watches TV in the kitchen and placed her own large refrigerator there, but she also constantly scolds her neighbor for the dirty stove and the unpleasant odor of her cooking. Every time she complains that she enters the kitchen at the wrong time. What's more, she has taken an interest in Kristina Sergeyevna's son, finding him attractive.